What you are doing is what the whole universe is doing, right here, right now. You are something the entire universe is doing, just as a wave is something the whole ocean is doing. You are not separate from it. You are it. Now that's not fatalism. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you're some poor little puppet pushed around by fate, kicked here and there by life. That's what most people think when they hear this. They say, oh, so everything is determined? I'm just a machine running on someone else's program? No, that's not it at all. The fatalist says, I am separate from life. Life is doing things to me and I can't fight back. That's fatalism. That's the slave mentality. What I'm saying is something very different. The real you, the deep down you, is not some little thing being kicked around by life. The real you is life itself. You are the universe. You are the ocean that makes the wave. You are the whole process, growing, breathing, moving, unfolding. When you breathe, it's the universe breathing. When you move, it's the universe dancing. When you laugh, it's the universe laughing. And yet, most of us don't feel that way, do we? We've been tricked. We've been hoodwinked into a very peculiar hallucination, the belief that we exist only inside our skin. That's the big mistake. You see, most of us walk around thinking we are these little isolated creatures trapped in a bag of skin, looking out at a world that's separate from us. We think, here I am, and out there is the world, and I have to fight it, survive in it, conquer it. That's madness. And it's just as crazy as a man who thinks he's Napoleon, or worse, someone who thinks he's a poached egg and goes looking for a piece of toast to sit on. It's that insane. Because your real body is not just what's inside your skin. Your real body is the whole thing. The air you breathe is as much you as your lungs. The sunlight on your skin is as much you as your blood. The earth beneath your feet is as much you as your bones. You are not in the world. You are the world. But here's the problem. When you don't feel that way, when you believe this hallucination of separation, you begin to mistreat the world. You treat it as an enemy. You try to beat it into submission. And what happens when you do that? Disaster. You see it everywhere. We cut down millions of acres of forest just to turn them into newspapers full of, well, mostly nothing. Lovely trees turned into information about nothing. And we don't even replace them properly. Why do we do this? Because deep down we feel like victims. We feel like the world is kicking us around, so we kick it back. But here's the great irony. The world you're fighting is you. You are fighting yourself. And that's why the world seems so hostile, because you're treating it as if it's something foreign, something to conquer, instead of something you are deeply, inseparably part of. Now, this misunderstanding, this hallucination, is why we need a completely new kind of consciousness. A way of seeing ourselves that is not trapped in this tiny little ego, this little me rattling around inside our heads. Because you're not just that. Think about it for a second. Do you know how you're alive? You don't grow your hair consciously, do you? You don't sit there saying, all right, let's push another hair out, let's color it black, curl it a little. You don't shape your bones, pump your heart, or secrete all those chemicals your body needs to survive. You do it, but you don't know how you do it. And yet, you are doing it. Just as the sun is shining, just as the stars are moving in their great dance, you are breathing, digesting, growing, beating, being. Because underneath the little conscious I that worries about things, there's another self. A deeper self. The real you, and that deeper you is not separate from anything. The more you become aware of it, the more you realize you are not just this skin-bound creature. You are the galaxy spinning. You are the Milky Way turning. You are the vast universe unfolding right now as you. One day, you might wake up, look around and say, my God, this is me. All of it. This whole thing is me. And when you see that, something extraordinary happens. You realize you've never been separate. You've never been alone. And you've never really died, because how can the universe die? You've been John Jones, Mary Smith, Betty Brown, and you'll keep appearing forever and ever, playing different roles, wearing different masks. And when you really get that deeply, in your bones you stop fighting. You stop trying to force life to go your way. You understand something very simple, very profound. The universe isn't going anywhere. It's not on a mission. It's not racing to some grand finale. It's just dancing. And you, yes, you are that dance. So, let's take this a little further. If you want to understand how we treat the world, how we treat ourselves, you have to look at what we believe about nature. Because the way you think about nature is the way you think about you. Now, in the history of philosophy, there are really three basic views of nature, and each one tells you something about how people see themselves. The first view is the Western one, the one we inherited from the Hebrews and carried through the Industrial Revolution. In this view, nature is a machine, a construct, an artifact made by God, or, if you don't like the word God, some cosmic engineer out there somewhere. The Hebrews pictured God as a potter shaping clay. The Greeks imagined a divine architect drawing up blueprints. And Christians, well, they called him the Creator, as if he was a carpenter making a table. And it's not insignificant, you know, that Jesus was the son of a carpenter. That idea runs deep in the Western mind. So, in this view, the world is a thing that's been put together. And if it's been put together, then somebody knows how it was put together. There's a master plan, a blueprint. That's the Western God, the great engineer sitting in his workshop, making the world like a watchmaker crafting a watch. Now, in the 18th century, things began to change. People started doubting whether there really was a God. But even when they threw out the idea of the divine watchmaker, they kept the idea of the watch. They still looked at the world as a machine, just a machine that somehow built itself. Newton's physics came along and suddenly the whole universe was gears and levers, masses and forces. And to this day, most of us still think that way. You can hear it in the way we talk. My body is wearing out, I need a tune-up. The brain is just a computer. We treat ourselves as if we're machines. And what do you do with a machine? You control it. You manipulate it. You take it apart to see how it works. So that's what we've done to nature. We treat it like a thing, something to exploit, to push, to dominate. But there's another way to see it. The second view comes from the East, from China, India, and much of the ancient world. Here, nature isn't a machine. It's not made. It grows. It's more like a tree than a table, more like a cloud than a clock. The Chinese have a beautiful word for this, Su Jian. It means that which happens by itself. The way grass grows, the way clouds form, the way your heart beats without you ever telling it to. The Taoists, the Buddhists, the Hindus, they all look at the universe as something that happens naturally, like a great living organism. And if you see it that way, you don't ask who's in charge. You don't ask who's controlling this. because no one controls it. Just like no one sits inside your body, pulling levers to make your heart beat or your hair grow. It does itself, and you are part of that. This is why in the East people talk less about conquering nature and more about living in harmony with it. The whole idea of Tao the Way is about moving with the current, not against it. Because if you fight it, you're just fighting yourself. And then there's a third view, one that goes even deeper. The Hindus call it Lila divine play. In this view, the world is not a machine. It's not just an organism either. It's a drama, a play, a great cosmic game of hide and seek. And here's the trick. You are God, playing hide and seek with yourself. You've hidden from yourself on purpose so you can have the thrill of finding yourself again. Because after all, what fun would hide and seek be if you always knew where everybody was? So here you are, pretending to be you, this little person with your worries, your struggles, your joys, your heartbreaks. But deep down you know it's a game, because if you remembered who you really were, if you remembered you were the whole universe, you wouldn't be able to enjoy the play. And so, you take it seriously. You cry. You laugh. You fall in love. You suffer. You get scared. Just like an actor on stage, you play your role as if it's the only reality. But eventually the curtain falls, you take a bow, and you go back to being what you really are. Then, of course, you do it all over again. Now, which of these three views is correct? Is the world a machine? Is it an organism? Or is it a cosmic drama? Well, that depends on how you see yourself. If you think you're a machine, the world will look like a machine. If you feel alive and growing, you'll see the world as alive and growing. And if you realize this is all play, you'll treat life like a dance. But here's the real question, and it's the one that changes everything. What if all three are true, depending on how you choose to play the game? So, where does this all lead? Why does it matter whether you think the world is a machine, an organism, or a play? Because how you see the world is how you live in it. And how you live in it is how you live yourself. If you think it's a machine, you'll try to control it. If you think it's alive, you learn to move with it. And if you see it as a play, well, you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll bow at the end, knowing you were never really in danger. You see, we keep asking life the wrong question. We keep asking, what's the meaning of it all? Where is it going? What's the point? But that's like asking, what's the point of dancing? You don't dance to arrive at a particular spot on the floor. If that were the point, dancers would simply rush across the room and stop. No, the point of dancing is the dance. The point of music is the music. You don't listen to a symphony just to hear the last note. You listen to the whole thing, every rise and fall, every tension and release, every moment of beauty. And life is exactly the same. It's not a journey. It's not going anywhere. It's not racing toward some final destination where you can say, I made it, I've arrived. The whole idea of getting somewhere is a kind of illusion. You're already here. You were always here. Because the universe isn't traveling to some finish line. It's not marching. It's dancing. And you are part of that dance. Most people don't get this. They live as if life were a race. Always running, always rushing, trying to make it, trying to get ahead. Get ahead of what? Ahead of everyone else? Ahead of time? Ahead of yourself? And when they finally make it, they don't even know what they've been chasing. Have you noticed? People work like mad to retire, and then, when they retire, they don't know what to do with themselves. They've been so busy running to the music's end that they forgot how to dance. And so, they feel empty, but that's because they missed the secret. The secret is, you're not supposed to get anywhere. You're supposed to be here, to play, to dance, to enjoy the music while it lasts. And when you really see that, you relax. You stop forcing. You stop trying to control everything, because you realize it's all you anyway. Think about it. The whole universe has been building up to this moment, to you, sitting here, breathing, listening, existing. Billions of years of stars exploding, planets forming, life evolving, all of it, just so this particular expression of the universe you could happen. And here you are. You are the universe looking at itself. You are the galaxy thinking about itself. You are the whole thing, pretending to be just a person for the sheer joy of the game. And the game is hide and seek. You've hidden from yourself so you can play. You've forgotten that you are God, that you are the eternal thing, the great self, because if you remembered it all the time, there'd be no surprise, no thrill, no fun. So you take it seriously. You worry, you hope, you cry when things go wrong, you laugh when things go right. But deep down, you know, somewhere in the quiet of your heart, you know you can't ever lose. Because when the game is over, when this life ends, you'll wake up. You'll take off the mask. You'll laugh and say, I almost forgot it was just a play. And then, of course, you'll do it all over again. So stop trying to push the river. Stop fighting life as if it's something happening to you. It's not happening to you. It's happening as you. You are the wave. You are the ocean. You are the dance itself. And when you really feel that, what you are doing is what the whole universe is doing, right here, right now. You are something the entire universe is doing, just as a wave is something the whole ocean is doing. You are not separate from it. You are it. Now that's not fatalism. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you're some poor little puppet pushed around by fate, kicked here and there by life. That's what most people think when they hear this. They say, oh, so everything is determined? I'm just a machine running on someone else's program? No, that's not it at all. The fatalist says, I am separate from life. Life is doing things to me and I can't fight back. That's fatalism. That's the slave mentality. What I'm saying is...
But when the noise subsides, when thought loses its grip, this doesn't mean thought is your enemy. It has its place. You use it to navigate, to communicate, to create. But it was never meant to dominate. The problem is not thinking itself, but identifying with it, believing every thought as if it were truth, letting thought define who you are, what you should do, how you should feel. But a thought is just a thought. It's a passing cloud, not the sky. It is something that happens in consciousness. It is not consciousness itself. When you begin to see that thoughts are not you, something profound shifts. You no longer feel compelled to follow every narrative, to fix every problem that the mind invents. You can observe thought without getting entangled. You can let it rise and fall without chasing it or resisting it. This witnessing is the beginning of freedom. It's the space where peace begins to emerge, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer enslaved by the mind's stories. So many of those stories are rooted in the past or projected into the future. Regret, guilt, shame, they all come from looking backward. Fear, anxiety, anticipation, these arise from looking forward. But neither the past nor the future actually exists right now. They are mental constructions. Memory and imagination, useful at times, yes, but not real in the same way this moment is real. And yet most people live in those imagined timelines, rarely touching the present, rarely resting in what is. When you stop identifying with thought, time itself begins to loosen its grip. You start to notice that the present moment is not a fleeting sliver between past and future, but a spacious, eternal now. It's not bound by the ticking of a clock. It's not something you fall into briefly and then lose. It's always available. It's where life is actually happening. All thought about life is just commentary. The experience itself, the felt sense of being, is always here. It doesn't require thinking to exist. In fact, it thrives in the absence of thought. You don't need to believe this. You can test it. Sit quietly. A sense of being that is not made of words. That stillness is your true nature. That being is who you are, beneath the noise. This realization is not an escape from life. It's the return to life. When the mind quiets down, you don't become passive or detached. You become present. You become engaged. You start to notice things you used to overlook, the sensation of air on your skin, the subtle colors of the sky, the warmth in someone's eyes. These are not things you analyze. These are things you feel directly. When thought steps aside, the richness of life steps forward. There's a kind of intelligence that arises in this silence. But it's not the intelligence of calculation or reasoning, it's the intelligence of awareness itself. A knowing that doesn't come from the mind, but through the body, through the heart, through the presence that underlies all of it. This intelligence doesn't argue or compare, it simply sees. The mind, for all its brilliance, cannot grasp this. It can talk about it, theorize about it, even write books about it, but it cannot embody it. Only you, free of thought, open and aware, can be it. And in being it, all confusion falls away. Not because you've figured everything out, but because you've stopped needing to. You've stopped seeking answers where none are needed. You've allowed yourself to rest in the mystery. And in doing so, you've discovered peace. There is nothing to fix, there is nothing to chase. When the mind grows still, what's left is enough. In fact, what's left is everything. There is only this breath, this moment, this life. When you stop thinking, even for a brief moment, something incredible happens. You begin to feel again. You return to your senses, to the raw, unfiltered texture of life. Thinking acts like a veil, a layer of interpretation laid over direct experience. It breaks everything into categories, ideas, comparisons. It doesn't just see a tree, it sees a kind of tree. It evaluates its size, its symmetry, its relation to other trees. It labels and judges and defines. But in doing so, it separates you from the thing itself. You become a mind thinking about the tree rather than a being encountering the presence of a tree. But stop thinking, and suddenly the tree is no longer an object. It becomes a vivid, living presence. Its colors intensify, its shape becomes mysterious, its silence speaks. You feel the bark, not just as roughness, but as texture pressing back into your hand. You see light dance in its leaves. You hear it breathing with the wind. In the absence of thought, experience becomes richer, deeper, more sacred. This is not because anything external has changed, but because you are no longer filtering reality through a conceptual lens. This is why animals seem so alive. They don't live in abstraction. They respond directly to life as it arises. A cat doesn't contemplate the meaning of its existence. It moves, it listens, it rests, it reacts. Its presence is total. It doesn't live in tomorrow. It doesn't replay yesterday. It is the moment. Humans, though, are often lost in commentary. Even in the midst of beauty, we are thinking about beauty rather than feeling it. Even in moments of love, we are analyzing love instead of surrendering to it. We try to define happiness instead of allowing ourselves to be happy. But when thinking falls away, you begin to notice how miraculous everything really is. How strange and wonderful it is to be conscious. To feel the warmth of the sun on your face. To hear the distant sound of birdsong. To taste food not just with your mouth, but your whole being. Sensory experience is not a distraction from life. It is life. But thought tries to reduce everything into explanation and expectation. It wants to know what comes next. It wants to predict and control. Try this. Go for a walk without a destination. Don't think about how far you'll go or what you'll get done. Just walk. Feel the contact of your feet with the ground. Hear the rhythm of your breath. Let your eyes wander without focusing. Let the world come to you. In those moments when you stop trying to grasp life, you begin to receive it. You become porous. The wind moves through you. The sounds of the street become music. You're not outside the world anymore, observing it through thought. You're inside it, part of it, flowing with it. The more you come out of your head, the more you realize how much life you've been missing. Not because it wasn't there, but because your attention was elsewhere. Thinking pulls you into mental time travel, into scenarios, memories, hypotheticals. But your body never leaves the now. It's always here, breathing, sensing, living. And when your awareness returns to the body, to the senses, you come home. You come back to the place where everything is already happening, already whole, already enough. This kind of presence doesn't require effort. In fact, effort gets in the way. Presence is your natural state when thought no longer hijacks your attention. It's the original awareness behind the noise. You don't need to try to be present. You just need to stop trying to be somewhere else. That trying, that striving, that constant mental movement, it's what takes you out of the moment. But when the mind rests, the senses awaken. And in the awakening of the senses, there is joy. Even difficult emotions become more bearable when met with presence. Pain, when thought about, becomes suffering. But pain, when felt directly, is just sensation. It moves, it shifts, it teaches. When you don't overlay it with stories, why it's happening, how long it will last, what it means, you discover that even pain has intelligence. It is the body's way of speaking. But thought tries to silence it, to fix it, to flee from it. In doing so, it amplifies it. The beauty of not thinking is that it opens you to the mystery. Thought wants to name things. It wants to put life into boxes. But life isn't a box. It's a river. It's a dance. It doesn't need to be understood to be experienced. In fact, trying to understand it too much can get in the way. Some things are meant to be felt, not figured out. Some moments are meant to be breathed, not broken down. Silence holds wisdom that words can't touch. And in this silence, the world reveals its soul. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. A candle's flame, the curve of a shadow, the pause between two heartbeats. These are not distractions from some greater truth. They are the truth, unfolding moment by moment, in perfect imperfection. Thought will try to convince you that something more important is always just around the corner. But the real magic is always here, always now, waiting for you to notice. So when thought softens and falls into the background, what remains is life, undivided and intimate. You begin to live with your whole being, not just your mind. You feel more, not less. You love more deeply, not less. You awaken to the poetry of the everyday, to the wonder of simply being. Not as a philosophy, not as a belief, but as a living, breathing truth that needs no explanation. You begin to realize that thinking, for all its uses, is just one small aspect of consciousness. And when you stop relying on it so heavily, you discover a vast, spacious awareness that has been here all along. You discover a vast, spacious awareness that has the signature of life. Life is the root of everything. The illusion of control is perhaps one of the most persistent deceptions the mind produces. Thought, in its nature, seeks certainty. It creates structures, makes plans, calculates risks, and projects scenarios, all in an effort to build a fortress around the unpredictability of life. The mind tells us that if we think hard enough, plan thoroughly enough, analyze deeply enough, we can bend reality to our will. We can ensure things go our way. We can prevent the unwanted and guarantee the desired. But this is a fantasy dressed up in logic. Life does not unfold according to our thoughts. In fact, most of life happens despite our thoughts. There is a difference between practical thought and compulsive thought. Practical thought is useful. It helps you cook your dinner, tie your shoes, drive a car, solve a puzzle. It's rooted in the immediate and the necessary. But compulsive thought is something else entirely. It's the constant chatter that fills the silence, the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what others think, what might happen, what should have happened, what could go wrong. This kind of thinking creates the illusion that you are the master architect of your reality, when in truth you are standing in a river pretending to control its flow. The river of life moves on its own. Seasons change, people come and go, emotions rise and fall, the body ages, the earth spins. None of these processes ask for your approval. They occur with or without your permission. You do not choose your heartbeat. You do not micromanage your digestion. You do not think yourselves into division, and yet here you are, alive and functioning, even when you are asleep. What greater evidence do you need that life is not under your command, and yet it takes perfect care of you? When you stop thinking, you begin to notice how much control you never really had. And strangely, this is not frightening. It is liberating. You realize that you do not need to hold the reins so tightly. You do not need to orchestrate every detail. It is the recognition that you are not a separate entity trying to master the universe, but an expression of the universe itself. A wave doesn't control the ocean, yet it moves with it. In the same way, you are not apart from life. The compulsion to control stems from fear, fear of the unknown, fear of chaos, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. So the mind invents strategies, it worries, it compares, it anticipates problems, it lives in imagined futures. But no amount of thought can protect you from the impermanence of things. Everything changes. Everything. Clinging only brings suffering. The tighter you hold, the more painful it becomes when life inevitably shifts. But when you stop thinking long enough to feel, you begin to trust, not in outcomes, but in the process itself. This trust is not a belief, it is not blind faith, it is a deep, intuitive knowing that even when things don't go according to plan, something within you remains unshaken. It is the realization that you are not just the thoughts about your life, you are the awareness in which life happens. This awareness is not trying to control anything, it doesn't judge, it doesn't resist, it simply is. It allows, and in allowing it discovers peace. Letting go of the need to control does not mean you give up on action or abandon responsibility. It means you stop trying to dominate life through mental effort. You still take steps, but you're no longer anxious about the outcome. You still plan, but you don't cling to your plans. You still care, but your sense of identity isn't entangled in success or failure. There's a lightness in your movement because you've stopped demanding that life conform to your expectations. This doesn't mean you won't face pain. Pain is part of being human. But when you're not trapped in thought, pain passes through more easily. You're not adding extra layers of suffering by resisting it, fearing it, or overanalyzing it. You allow it to be what it is. You breathe through it. And you learn from it, not as a lesson the mind has to dissect, but as something the heart understands intuitively. In this way, even difficulty becomes a doorway to depth. So much of what you think you need to control isn't your job. You don't need to control how others perceive you. You don't need to control the timing of things. You don't need to control what will happen tomorrow. These things are like clouds passing through the sky, beautiful, shifting, and ultimately out of your hands. What you can do is show up fully, moment by moment. You can be awake, you can be honest, you can be present. There is great wisdom in surrender, not because surrender is weak, but because it is aligned with reality. Fighting life only creates more pain. Trusting life allows you to participate in it with grace. You dance rather than struggle. You flow rather than force. And in that flow, things often work out in ways your thinking mind could never have predicted. Serendipity appears, clarity emerges, love expands. Not because you made it happen, but because you got out of the way. The paradox is that when you stop trying to control everything, you become more capable. Your actions arise from stillness, not from panic. Your words come from silence, not from noise. Your choices reflect presence, not projection. And so they carry a different kind of power, a power rooted in authenticity rather than effort. This kind of power doesn't dominate, it resonates. It doesn't conquer, it harmonizes. So allow yourself to stop thinking, if only for a moment. Notice the breath, notice the space around you. Let the mind fall quiet. Not forever, just long enough to taste the peace that doesn't come from solving problems or predicting outcomes, but from letting go. That peace is not something you can manufacture with thought. It is already here, beneath the surface noise, waiting to be remembered. And once you remember, you never forget. Not truly, because the taste of truth lingers. The scent of freedom remains. And slowly, gently, the illusion of control begins to dissolve into the simple beauty of being alive. Act as if everything always works out for you, not because you're blindly optimistic, nor because you're naive to the nature of suffering, but because there is a quiet intelligence woven into the fabric of life itself. When you begin to trust in that intelligence, not with arrogance, but with wonder, you start to feel the rhythm of something far deeper than the surface chaos. Now imagine for a moment, what if the events that seem to go wrong are not wrong at all? What if they are the precise movements of a cosmic dance, choreographed not by chance, but by the same intelligence that causes a tree to bloom, a bird to migrate, or a wave to crash perfectly against the shore? We too are part of that rhythm. But we fight it. We worry, resist, and try to control what was never ours to command. You see, there's a kind of serenity that arises when you stop trying to force life and instead begin to flow with it. That's not to say you should do nothing. It's not passivity. It's participation without panic. It's action without tension. It's allowing life to unfold while playing your part with trust. There's a deep beauty in showing up to life with the spirit of, I'll do what I can, and then I'll let go. And in that letting go, you find the peace you are trying to control your way into. But this acting as if is not a performance. It's a return to a truth you've known all along. That beneath the worry and the noise, you've survived everything you were once afraid of. Life didn't break you, it reshaped you, and often it gave you something better than what you thought you wanted. So now, instead of panicking when a door closes, you begin to smile quietly, knowing that a better one may already be swinging open. When people walk away, you don't beg them to stay. You trust that whoever is meant to walk with you will never require you to chase. There is something magnetic about a soul that trusts. It's not loud. It doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't need to argue for its place in the world. It simply knows. Not in the mind, but in the body. In the stillness behind the thoughts. It knows that the rain nourishes just as much as the sun. It knows that detours aren't delays. They are invitations to destinations we never imagined existed. We've been conditioned to believe that control equals security. But security doesn't come from control. It comes from trust. And trust is not earned by life being easy. Trust is formed when you fall and realize the ground is softer than you thought. It comes when you lose what you thought you couldn't live without and discover you're still breathing. It comes when the things you feared most turn out to be the very things that awakened your soul. So when you act as if everything always works out for you, you're not pretending. You're aligning. You're stepping into harmony with the wisdom that already exists. You are becoming like the river that doesn't resist the current, but lets it carry it forward. And yes, the path may twist and turn, but the water never doubts. It will reach the sea. This way of being, it invites ease, it invites miracles, and perhaps most importantly, it invites presence. When you stop gripping for a specific outcome, you begin to enjoy the moment as it is. You laugh more, you notice more, you listen better, and ironically, it's often in those moments when you've let go of the need for things to happen a certain way that everything begins to fall beautifully into place. You are not here to suffer under the illusion of constant threat. You are here to participate in the unfolding of something vast, mysterious, and, if you let it, deeply kind. So breathe a little deeper, walk a little slower, smile without a reason, act not with desperation but with peace. Because maybe, just maybe, everything is already working out for you, you just haven't recognized the pattern yet. Imagine waking up each morning without the weight of trying to figure everything out. No mental wrestling matches with the unknown, no obsessive planning, just trust. Not the kind that blindly ignores danger or responsibility, but the kind that whispers, "You're held." Even now, especially now. There's a stillness in that, an unshakable peace that doesn't depend on what the news says, what others think, or even what the day may bring. Because deep beneath the surface, you've stopped fighting the current. You've stopped clutching to the illusion of control. And in that surrender, something remarkable begins to happen. Life starts moving with you, not against you. Control is a funny thing. We're taught to believe that it's the ultimate strength. That if you plan enough, predict enough, and protect enough, then you can avoid pain and manufacture certainty. But this belief is exhausting. It demands endless effort. It's like trying to swim upstream while the river keeps urging you to just let go and float. And yet we keep kicking, flailing, gasping for breath, mistaking effort for effectiveness. But the truth is, the more tightly you try to grip reality, the more it slips through your fingers. When you begin to trust the flow of life, not as a theory but as a way of being, everything changes. You stop asking, what if it all goes wrong, and start wondering, what if this detour is exactly what I need? You stop interpreting delays as denials and begin seeing them as divine pauses, spaces that make room for something better. And that better thing doesn't always look impressive from the outside. It might be a quiet moment of realization, a chance encounter, an unplanned conversation that shifts your whole perspective. These are the gentle miracles that arrive when you stop trying to be the architect of every single outcome. But let's be honest, it's terrifying to let go, because letting go means releasing your grip on outcomes. It means being okay with not knowing. It means recognizing that you are not the puppet master of life, but rather a participant in a dance where you're not always leading. And that feels like vulnerability. That feels like risk. But here's the twist. It's in that very surrender that you gain access to a deeper power, a wisdom that doesn't come from forcing, but from aligning. You start noticing synchronicities. You begin seeing how even your past missteps led to insights and opportunities. You realize that the moments you thought would break you were actually shaping you. That the people who walked away made space for something more honest. That the jobs you lost gave you time to hear your own voice. This kind of trust doesn't come from logic. It comes from awareness, from slowing down long enough to recognize that the universe hasn't failed you. It's been guiding you in silence. And the more you trust that flow, the more you discover how unnecessary worry really is. Worry doesn't prevent pain. It prevents peace. It's like praying for something you don't want. It tells life, I don't believe you'll take care of me. But when you replace that worry with quiet confidence, you step into a different vibration. One that no longer screams for security, but simply knows it's safe. That's when doors open. That's when people show up. That's when things start falling into place, not because you force them to, but because you stop blocking them with fear. You also stop needing to control others. You stop needing everyone to understand you, agree with you, or support you. You begin to realize that your peace was never supposed to come from external agreement. It was always meant to arise from internal alignment. And when you're aligned, you don't chase validation. You don't force relationships to work. You don't manipulate circumstances to feel okay. You simply trust. And that trust becomes magnetic. It draws the right experiences. It repels the unnecessary ones. It makes space for grace to enter where fear once lived. Of course, there will still be storms. Trusting the flow doesn't mean the skies are always clear. It means you learn to dance in the rain without panicking that the sun is gone for good. It means you stop trying to predict the forecast and instead become the kind of person who finds peace in any weather. That's real power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that dissolves fear. A quiet, grounded strength that says, whatever comes, I'll meet it with presence. I'll meet it with faith. Over time, this way of being transforms your entire experience. You no longer see life as something to survive, but something to participate in fully. You begin to enjoy the unfolding, even when you don't know where it's going. You stop demanding guarantees and start noticing the beauty in unpredictability. because you realize that the river of life has always carried you, even through the rocks and the rapids. And now, instead of resisting it, you're floating with it. You're trusting that even the bends you can't see are leading somewhere meaningful, somewhere right, somewhere deeply, perfectly timed. There's a moment in every journey when you feel lost. A sudden turn, a closed door, a path you didn't plan for, and everything you thought you knew begins to unravel. The panic rises. You wonder, did I make a mistake? Did I miss a sign? Did I mess up everything? But what if none of that is true? What if the moment you feel most off course is the moment you're actually being steered somewhere more meaningful? What if the detour is not the delay you fear, but the design you need? Life doesn't always reveal its logic in real time. In fact, it rarely does. It moves in riddles and paradoxes. It hides its treasures in places you would never willingly go. But somehow through all of it, it shapes you. And when you look back, it's often the roads you didn't plan to walk that led to the richest destinations, but because they made you see things you would have otherwise ignored. They woke something inside you that would have stayed asleep in the comfort of predictability. The culture around you screams that a straight line is success, that detours are failures, that change means you've done something wrong, that nature doesn't agree, the tree doesn't grow in a line, rivers don't flow straight to the ocean, even the stars move in orbits. Everything in the natural world bends, spirals, curves, pauses, expands. Why should your life be any different? Why should your growth follow a formula? There's a silent intelligence behind what looks like chaos. When things don't go as planned, it doesn't mean the plan has failed. It might mean the plan was too small, too safe, too linear for the soul's wild and vast unfolding. Sometimes the detour is the only way to reroute you to something your logical mind couldn't imagine. You may think you're off track, but maybe that track was never yours to walk forever. Maybe you were only meant to start there, not stay there. Think of all the people you wouldn't have met if life had gone your way. Think of the versions of yourself that would never have emerged if things had unfolded neatly. Think of the strength, the awareness, the compassion you now hold, not because life was easy, but because it wasn't. The storm taught you to anchor. The fall taught you to rise. The ending made space for a beginning you didn't even know you needed. This is the secret language of detours. They don't announce themselves as blessings. They arrive as interruptions. But there is gold in what interrupts us. There is wisdom in what we resist. Often the most sacred moments of growth come cloaked in what feels like loss. The detour asks you to let go of certainty and walk into the unknown. It asks you to loosen your grip on your identity, your image, your expectations. And it invites you to meet yourself in a deeper way. Not the self that performs or pleases or achieves, but the self that watches it all and remains. You begin to see that detours are not signs that life is unfair. They are signs that life is aware, that it sees what you do not, that it's orchestrating a symphony your ears are not yet trained to hear. And if you can trust that, if you can surrender to the silence of not knowing, you create the space for new paths to emerge. Paths that are not based on fear or force, but on alignment. And isn't that the goal? Not just to arrive somewhere, but to arrive whole. to grow not just taller but deeper, to collect not just achievements but meaning. You could reach every goal and still feel empty if your soul wasn't part of the journey. But when you walk with awareness, even the broken paths begin to shimmer with purpose. Even the pain begins to feel like an invitation. The detour is where the soul stretches, where the heart becomes tender, where the mind is humbled, where life says, slow down, look again. It is where you stop running from yourself long enough to hear what really matters, and often what matters has nothing to do with how things appear on the outside. It has everything to do with what awakens inside. So the next time life reroutes you, pause before you panic. Don't rush to fix it or label it or escape it. Let yourself feel the discomfort, yes. Let yourself grieve the path you thought was yours. But then, stay open, stay curious, stay soft enough to let the new begin. Because it will. It always does. Not always on your timeline, not always in the form you expected, but it will. And one day, what felt like a setback will reveal itself as sacred redirection. What once made you cry will now make you wise. What looked like the end will become the beginning of something more honest, something more aligned, something that doesn't just fit your plans, but fits your soul. You don't have to fear the detour. You only have to walk it with awareness, because when you do, you begin to see life not as a problem to be solved, but as a mystery to be lived. And in that mystery, nothing is wasted. No wrong turn, no delay, no loss. Everything becomes part of the path. Everything belongs, even this, especially this. There's a certain power that doesn't come from proving, persuading, or pushing. It's not loud, it's not forceful, and it doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. It lives in the quiet spaces between the noise. It radiates from someone who has stopped seeking permission to be at peace. This kind of power, the calm that flows from within, is what shapes reality more than any desperate attempt to control or fix. Because when your inner world is rooted in calm, life begins to mirror that stillness. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but consistently, quietly, and inevitably. Most people are driven by the chaos of their own minds. They wake up worrying, move through the day anticipating problems, and fall asleep exhausted by the constant need to figure everything out. Their nervous systems are on high alert. Every delay feels like danger. Every silence feels like rejection. Every shift feels like failure. But beneath all of that noise is a question most are too afraid to ask. What if I stopped trying so hard? What would happen if I trusted instead of chased? When you act as if everything always works out for you, you're not denying reality. You're shifting your center of gravity. You're choosing to move from stillness, not struggle. You're letting go of the exhausting illusion that if you don't control everything, everything will fall apart. And that shift, however subtle, is radical. Because calm is a frequency. It's a vibration that whispers to the universe, I'm ready, not restless. It sends out a signal that says, I'm available to receive, not to wrestle. You begin to notice that your interactions change. People respond differently. Doors open without you having to bang on them. Even challenges begin to feel less threatening. Why? Because you're no longer adding resistance to what's already happening. You're no longer meeting life with clenched fists. Instead, you're meeting it with open hands. And open hands can carry more than closed ones ever could. There is something deeply magnetic about a person who is calm in uncertainty, who can stand in the middle of chaos and not become it, who can say, I don't know what's next, but I trust that I'll be okay. That kind of inner composure is not built overnight. It's cultivated in the quiet moments. It's shaped by choosing again and again not to let fear drive the car. And slowly over time you realize that calm was never weakness. It was always clarity. You don't need the world to be perfect to be at peace. You only need to stop outsourcing your peace to things that fluctuate. Money will rise and fall. Relationships will shift. Plans will change. But your inner state doesn't have to be held hostage by those fluctuations. You can anchor yourself to something deeper, something more constant than circumstance. And the moment you do, you stop being a victim of life's storms. You become the stillness within them. Think of a tree rooted deep in the earth. The wind comes, the rain falls, seasons change, but the tree remains. It bends, but it does not break, not because the weather is gentle, but because the roots are strong. That's what calm does. It roots you in something deeper than reaction. It gives you the space to choose your response instead of being dragged around by emotion. And in that space, you gain freedom. You realize that peace was never about what was happening around you. It was always about how you met what was happening. You also begin to see how much energy you wasted on things that didn't need fixing. Just witnessing. How often you tried to solve feelings instead of feeling them. How often you argued with reality instead of sitting beside it. Calm teaches you that you don't need to react to every thought, that not every emotion is a call to action, that sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all, just presence. And when you're present, truly present, life softens. You hear things more clearly, you see people more compassionately, you make decisions from wisdom, not urgency. You no longer need to prove yourself, defend yourself, or rush your journey, because you trust the unfolding. You understand that just as the flower doesn't bloom faster because you yell at it, your life doesn't fall into place because you panic. It falls into place because you stop trying to force the petals open. This inner calm is not a performance. It's not pretending to be okay. It's knowing that okayness isn't a destination, it's a state of being you return to again and again, even when you're tired, even when you're scared, especially when you're uncertain. And the more you return to it, the more it becomes your default setting. Not because life has gotten easier, but because you've gotten quieter inside. You'll find that the people who are most deeply rooted in calm don't need to speak it out loud. Their presence speaks for them. They bring clarity to confusion. They bring steadiness to situations that would shake others. And that steadiness isn't born from having all the answers. It's born from no longer needing them right away. It's born from trusting that answers arrive in their own time, not on demand. So while the world continues to run on adrenaline and anxiety, you can choose something different. You can choose calm. Not because it's trendy or poetic, but because it's powerful, because it connects you to something eternal, because it allows you to be guided instead of gripped by fear. And in that choice, you don't just survive, you begin to truly live, not by force, not by strategy, but by alignment, by peace, by quiet knowing that whatever is unfolding, it will not destroy you. It will deliver you, and that is a life worth trusting. There is a rare kind of clarity that arrives when you stop running from the moment you're in. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It simply waits beneath your thoughts, behind the tension in your chest, underneath the stories you keep replaying in your mind. Presence is not a place you go. It's what's left when you stop trying to escape. And when you finally land there, even for a brief second, something extraordinary happens. You see things as they are, not as your fears have painted them. You recognize that the moment you were trying to bypass was actually the gateway to everything you've been seeking. We live in a world that constantly pulls us away from now. The past tugs at us with its regrets. The future lures us with its promises and threats. The mind becomes a pendulum swinging between what was and what might be, never fully settling into what is. And yet, the only place anything real can happen is here. Not tomorrow, not in some imagined version of yourself, but right here, in the space where your breath rises and falls without permission, where your feet meet the earth, where life is actually unfolding. The irony is that we believe presence is unproductive. We think being still means being stuck. We're conditioned to believe that if we're not worrying, planning, or doing something, then we're falling behind. But presence is not the absence of movement. It's the fullness of attention. And in that attention there's intelligence, a kind of knowing that can't be accessed through mental effort. It's the moment you stop asking life to be different, and instead you ask life what it's showing you now. And when you ask that question sincerely, without resistance, answers begin to appear where there was once only confusion. Acting as if everything always works out for you doesn't mean passively waiting for things to happen. It means showing up to each moment with the awareness that something is already happening. And your job is to meet it, not to control it. When you're present, your energy isn't scattered, it's focused. And that focus doesn't require strain. It requires attention. Deep, intentional attention. The kind that notices the details most people miss. The kind that allows beauty to emerge from what once felt ordinary. Presence is where you hear the subtle whispers of guidance that get drowned out by panic. It's where creativity flows without effort, where solutions arise without strain. It's not just a spiritual ideal, it's practical. It allows you to respond rather than react, to pause before you speak, to feel what's really true beneath the story you're telling yourself. And in that space, decisions become clearer, not always easier, but truer, because they're not driven by fear or pressure. They're shaped by awareness. And something else happens when you're present. Time expands. You stop feeling like you're chasing life and start realizing that life has been right here, waiting for you to catch up to it. The rush dissolves. The anxiety quiets. And in that slowness, you begin to live more fully in less time. It's no longer about how much you accomplish or how fast you get there. It's about how deeply you're connected to what you're doing, who you're with, and who you're becoming along the way. Being present doesn't mean you're always calm or composed. It means you're honest. It means you don't numb or bypass or avoid. You stay. You stay through the discomfort. You breathe through the uncertainty. You open your heart even when it's easier to close it. And by staying, you gain access to strength you didn't know you had. Not the kind that overpowers, but the kind that endures. The kind that holds space for pain without collapsing. The kind that loves without needing control. The kind that trusts without needing evidence. Presence also has this miraculous way of collapsing separation. When you're truly here, the wall between you and life disappears. You're no longer the observer standing at a distance. You're immersed in the moment. You feel the texture of reality. You hear the deeper layers of conversation. You see the sacredness in simple things. The way sunlight falls on a wall. The way someone's voice trembles when they're vulnerable. The way your own breath is enough to anchor you. You realize that nothing is missing from this moment except your attention. And when you bring your full attention, life responds. It opens up. It reveals more of itself. Not because it was holding back, but because you were too distracted to see. Presence is the lens that brings everything into focus. It's the portal through which grace enters. It's the frequency that aligns you with the flow. Because the flow never exists in the past or future, it's always now. The question is, are you? You don't have to fix everything to be present. You don't have to understand everything to trust it. You simply have to arrive fully. And when you do, even the smallest act, washing a dish, speaking a word, taking a breath, becomes meaningful, not because of what it accomplishes, but because of the awareness you bring to it. That awareness is the essence of alignment. And alignment is what allows life to unfold in harmony. When you choose presence, you're not choosing to be passive. You're choosing to be powerful in the quietest, most profound way. You're choosing to tune into the frequency where life speaks in silence, where miracles don't shout, they simply arrive, where everything you thought you needed to chase begins to move toward you, not because you forced it, but because you became still enough to receive it. In this space, you don't have to pretend everything is perfect. You only have to remember that perfection was never the goal. Awareness was, aliveness was. And when you are fully here, fully alive, fully aware, you begin to realize that this moment is enough. And from that place, everything begins. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you assume you're worthy of. That truth, simple as it sounds, carries immense weight. Because while many people walk around speaking affirmations, making vision boards, and dreaming big dreams, deep inside, there's a whisper of doubt. Do I deserve this? Can this really happen for me? That whisper is powerful, not because it's true, but because it governs what you allow yourself to receive. The universe doesn't respond to your words alone. It responds to the tone behind them, the energy you radiate, and the beliefs you carry when no one is watching. When you act as if everything always works out for you, you're not just creating a performance. You're stepping into a state of being, a vibration, a field of belief where your inner posture says, good things belong to me. You walk differently. You speak with less urgency. You make choices from peace instead of panic. You stop questioning whether things are possible and start wondering how beautifully they'll unfold. And the world notices. Not always consciously, but energetically. Opportunities, people, and experiences start moving toward you, not because you're chasing, but because you're resonating with the frequency of trust. Think of someone who walks into a room with quiet confidence. They don't need to shout or boast. They don't need to demand attention. There's something about the way they carry themselves that says, I am already enough. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to be. That's the kind of presence that magnetizes. And it doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. It comes from assuming that your worth is not conditional, that you don't have to earn ease, earn peace, or earn love. You only have to stop resisting them. Assumption is not fantasy. It's foundation. It's the invisible architecture of your life. You might think your circumstances are random, but look closely and you'll see patterns that mirror what you've allowed, what you've expected, what you've prepared for. Most people prepare more for disappointment than for miracles. They rehearse their fears. They anticipate rejection. They build emotional walls, not to protect themselves, but because they've quietly decided they aren't meant to receive what they long for. But when you shift that assumption, even slightly, your entire world begins to rearrange. It starts with small things. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop shrinking your light so others feel comfortable. You stop saying yes out of guilt and start saying yes from alignment. You stop waiting for approval and start moving as if you already have it. These shifts seem minor, but they signal something massive. A new belief is being installed. A belief that says, I belong to the flow. I belong to the abundance. I belong to the unfolding of something beautiful, and I don't need to beg for it. And life meets you there. Because the universe mirrors not just your thoughts, but your being. It listens to how you show up, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, how you treat yourself when no one is around. If you expect rejection, you'll see it everywhere. If you expect loss, you'll prepare for it even before it arrives. But if you begin to expect grace, if you assume that even the challenges are working in your favor, you begin to spot the subtle blessings that most people miss. There's something almost childlike about this state of being. Not childish, but childlike. A return to wonder, to trust, to walking through the world with the soft confidence that you are supported, that you don't have to force what is meant for you, that the universe is not punishing you, but positioning you. This kind of trust isn't built overnight. It's cultivated each time you choose belief over fear, softness over suspicion, curiosity over control. Each time you respond to life not with resistance, but with the quiet knowing even this is part of it. Even this has a purpose. It's not about pretending to be positive. It's not about masking your pain or denying reality. It's about choosing a deeper truth, a truth that says the universe is far more loving than you've been led to believe, that you don't have to hustle for your worth, that you don't have to earn your blessings by suffering first. You only have to stop contradicting your desires with doubt. You only have to stop shrinking your expectations to match your history. Your past is not your prediction, unless you keep rehearsing it. Assume peace, and you'll find yourself less reactive. Assume joy, and it'll start to visit even on the ordinary days. Assume support, and the right people begin to appear. Not because they weren't there before, but because you've stopped filtering them out with suspicion. This is the power of assumption. It becomes your lens. It decides what you notice, what you allow, what you amplify. And the more consistently you hold the assumption that everything is unfolding for your good, the more gracefully your life will begin to reflect that belief. There's a softness in this way of living. Not weakness, but softness. The softness of someone who doesn't need to grip so tightly anymore, who can breathe even when the outcome is uncertain, who can smile even when the path isn't clear, because they've discovered that their energy shapes more than their effort ever could. And that energy is created by assumption, not just what you say, but what you deeply believe to be true for you. So let your assumptions rise, not from your fears, but from your deepest knowing. Let them rise from the version of you that already exists in another timeline. The one who is whole, steady, fulfilled, not because everything is perfect, but because they know how to live inside the imperfection without losing their peace. That version of you is not far away. It's just a shift in belief away, a breath choice. There's a moment in life when you realize that the strings you've tied to the world around you have begun to fray. Not because of anger, not because of hatred, but because you've outgrown the need to hold on so tightly. Detachment isn't about running away, it's about seeing the world with clarity. What if, in letting go, you could experience a kind of freedom you never imagined? What if everything you've ever been searching for wasn't out there, but somewhere within you? When you begin to detach from others, not in bitterness, but in understanding, you'll find that something profound begins to shift. You stop seeing people and relationships as anchors, and instead you begin to flow like a river, moving effortlessly through life. This isn't an act of indifference, it's the art of finally realizing you were never meant to cling. Let me tell you a story about a man who lived his life chasing validation from everyone around him. He was loved, admired, and respected, yet he always felt a deep emptiness inside. Every decision he made, every word he spoke, was calculated to please someone else, to maintain the connections he thought he couldn't live without. One day this man met an old monk who lived in solitude atop a mountain. Curious, the man asked, "Don't you feel lonely up here?" Away from everyone, the monk smiled and replied, "Lonely? How can I feel lonely when I've discovered the company of the whole universe?" The man was puzzled. So the monk continued, "When you rely on others to complete you, you are always at their mercy. You live in fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of being forgotten. But when you let go, when you detach from the need to be anything for anyone, you discover the joy of simply being. You realize that the love and validation you've been seeking were within you all along." The man left the mountain with more questions than answers. But as he began to practice what the monk had taught him, his world began to transform. He stopped chasing relationships and started embracing solitude. He stopped fearing the loss of others and started finding himself. In time, he learned that detachment didn't mean abandoning the people he loved. It meant showing up with a fuller, freer version of himself. He could love deeply without being chained by expectation, and he could walk away when it was time to without regret. When you start to detach from others, something remarkable happens. You begin to see relationships for what they truly are, not as you imagine or wish them to be. Often, when we are deeply attached, our vision becomes clouded by expectations, fears, and desires. We project our needs onto others, believing they should fulfill us or behave in a way that aligns with our version of love, respect, or loyalty. But this projection is not love, it's a form of control disguised as connection. When you detach, you strip away these illusions. You stop clinging to people out of fear or need and start appreciating them for who they are. You no longer measure their worth or your own based on what they can give you or how they make you feel. You can look at a friend, a partner, or even a family member and see them clearly, free of the roles you've assigned them. You start to understand that love doesn't mean possession, and connection doesn't mean dependency. This clarity can be uncomfortable at first because it reveals the truth about some relationships. You may realize that certain people only stayed close because of what you could provide them, while others may have genuinely cared but were unable to meet the expectations you had unknowingly placed on them. But instead of this realization causing resentment, detachment brings a sense of peace. You begin to accept people for where they are in their journey, and in doing so, you free yourself from the burden of trying to change or fix them. You allow space in your relationships. You stop suffocating the people you care about with demands for constant attention, validation, or reassurance. In this space, something beautiful happens. Relationships become more genuine. Without the weight of expectation, love flows more freely. You can give without the need to receive, and you can walk away from situations that no longer serve you without bitterness. Detachment doesn't mean you care less, it means you care in a way that respects both yourself and the other person. It creates a foundation for deeper, more meaningful relationships rooted in truth rather than fear. You stop grasping, and in letting go, you find something far greater, a sense of connection that is unshakable because it isn't built on illusion. When you begin to detach, you realize that being understood by everyone is no longer necessary. For much of life, people cling to the idea that their worth is tied to how well others grasp their intentions, thoughts, or feelings. They explain themselves repeatedly, seeking validation, hoping to be seen in a way that aligns with their inner self. This constant need to be understood can become a heavy chain, binding you to the opinions and perspectives of others. Detachment releases you from this struggle. You start to understand that the way others perceive you is filtered through their own experiences, biases, and limitations. It has far more to do with them than it does with you. When you let go of the need to be understood, you free yourself from the exhausting task of trying to fit into a narrative that isn't yours to control. This doesn't mean you stop communicating or connecting with others. It means you stop tying your identity to their approval or comprehension. You realize that your truth doesn't need external validation to be real. You can express yourself fully and authentically, knowing that some will resonate with your words and others will not, and that's perfectly okay. Detachment allows you to stay grounded in your own sense of self, no matter how others respond. You don't waste energy defending yourself or trying to convince anyone of your worth. Instead, you simply exist as you are, trusting that those who are meant to understand you will, and those who don't are simply passing through your life. This clarity brings immense peace. You stop feeling the need to explain your choices, your values, or your dreams to anyone who questions them. You stand firm in the understanding that your life is your own, and no one else's opinion has the power to define you. This freedom is not just liberating, it's transformative. It allows you to move through the world with confidence, no longer swayed by the shifting tides of others' perceptions. You become untouchable, not in a way that distances you, but in a way that centers you in your own truth. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness or indifference, but it is far from that. It is liberation. When you let go of unhealthy attachments, you are not turning away from life or from people, you are stepping into freedom. True detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. It means you stop attaching your happiness and peace to things or people that are beyond your control. Imagine the stillness of a deep lake. No matter how much the surface is disturbed by the wind, the depths remain calm and unshaken. This is the gift of detachment. You no longer react to every ripple on the surface. You begin to cultivate a steadiness within yourself that is untouched by the storms of life. This doesn't mean you stop feeling or experiencing life, it means you stop allowing external chaos to dictate your state of being. You might find that some people and situations no longer have the power to upset you. When someone criticizes you, you no longer feel the need to defend yourself or take their words to heart. You realize their opinion is a reflection of their own inner world, not yours. When plans fall apart or unexpected challenges arise, you no longer spiral into frustration or despair. Instead, you accept what is and move forward with clarity and strength. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. You begin to see that much of the stress and anxiety you once experienced was not caused by external events, but by your own attachment to how those events should unfold. When you let go of those attachments, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. You stop fighting against reality and start flowing with it. Detachment doesn't mean you give up on life or stop caring. It means you stop clinging to the illusion of control. You can still have goals, dreams, and relationships, but you approach them with a sense of openness and flexibility. You no longer tie your happiness to their outcome. Instead, you find joy in the process, in the present moment, in the act of simply being. This shift can transform the way you experience relationships. Instead of seeking validation or fulfillment from others, you bring your own sense of wholeness into every interaction. You stop looking to others to complete you, and instead you connect from a place of love and freedom. This creates deeper, more meaningful relationships because you are no longer placing the burden of your happiness on someone else. In situations that once triggered you, you now find yourself responding with calm and clarity. You might encounter someone who is angry or disrespectful, and instead of reacting with the same energy, you remain grounded. You see their behavior for what it is, a reflection of their inner state, and you choose not to let it disturb your peace. This doesn't mean you tolerate mistreatment or allow others to walk over you. Detachment gives you the strength to set boundaries with compassion, to walk away when necessary, and to stand firm in your truth without being consumed by anger or resentment. When you detach, you also become more present. Without the constant pull of expectations and worries, you are able to fully experience the moment as it is. You notice the beauty of small things, a breeze on your skin, the sound of birds, the warmth of sunlight. You begin to appreciate life in its simplest, purest form. This presence brings a sense of gratitude and contentment that is not dependent on anything external. Detachment teaches you that your peace is your responsibility, It is not something others can give or take away. You stop blaming external circumstances for your emotional state and start taking ownership of your inner world. This empowerment allows you to navigate life with confidence and resilience, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the strength to remain steady. As you detach, you may notice that certain fears start to fade. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, all these lose their grip on you. You begin to understand that these fears were rooted in attachment, in the belief that your worth or safety depended on external validation or outcomes. When you let go of those attachments, the fears dissolve. You realize that you are enough as you are, and that no external event can diminish your inherent value. This understanding opens the door to a new kind of freedom. You are no longer bound by the need to prove yourself or to meet the expectations of others. You are free to live authentically, to follow your own path, and to embrace life fully without fear of judgment or failure. This freedom is not something that comes from escaping the world. It comes from engaging with it in a way that is true to yourself. Detachment also brings a sense of trust. You begin to trust the flow of life, knowing that everything unfolds as it should. You stop resisting change and start embracing it, seeing it as a natural part of existence. Even in moments of uncertainty or difficulty, you find a sense of peace, knowing that every experience has something to teach you. This trust extends to yourself as well. You trust your ability to handle whatever comes your way, to make decisions from a place of clarity and wisdom, and to create a life that aligns with your deepest values. You stop doubting yourself and start believing in your own strength and intuition. As you live with detachment, you begin to notice how much lighter life feels. The burdens you once carried, the need for approval, the fear of failure, the constant striving for control, fall away. You move through life with a sense of ease and grace, no longer weighed down by the expectations and attachments that once held you back. This lightness doesn't mean life becomes perfect or free of challenges. It means you approach those challenges with a new perspective, one that is rooted in peace rather than fear. You see every obstacle as an opportunity to grow, every setback as a chance to learn, and every moment as a gift to be experienced fully. Detachment allows you to see the world with fresh eyes. You begin to notice the interconnectedness of all things, the way life flows and unfolds in its own perfect rhythm. You see that everything is temporary, and this awareness brings a sense of freedom. You stop clinging to what must inevitably change and start appreciating the beauty of the present moment. This perspective transforms not only the way you experience life, but also the way you interact with others. You approach relationships with a sense of compassion and understanding, knowing that everyone is on their own journey. You no longer judge or criticize because you understand that each person is doing the best they can with the awareness they have. This compassion creates deeper connections and fosters a sense of unity with the world around you. Detachment doesn't isolate you, it connects you. It allows you to experience life in its fullness, to love without fear, to face challenges with courage, and to find peace in the midst of chaos. It is not a withdrawal from life, but an embrace of it, a way of living that is free, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. As you detach, you discover that peace is not something you find outside of yourself. It is something you carry within you, something that grows stronger with each moment of clarity and presence. This peace becomes your anchor, your guiding light, and your greatest source of strength. It is the essence of who you are, unshaken and untouchable, no matter what the world around you may bring. When you start detaching from others, something remarkable happens. You begin to understand that true freedom lies in releasing the need to control or depend on anyone else for your sense of happiness or fulfillment. This doesn't mean you stop caring or loving. It means your care and love are no longer tainted by expectations or the fear of losing someone. It's a shift that brings with it an extraordinary kind of liberation, allowing you to embrace your own individuality without feeling trapped by the roles and expectations that relationships often impose. Detachment doesn't make you less connected to others, it deepens your connection with yourself. You stop looking for others to fill the gaps within you, to validate your worth, or to provide the happiness you feel is missing. Instead, you discover that everything you've been seeking is already within you. When you detach, you begin to realize that your happiness isn't something to be given or taken away by others. It is yours, independent of any external source. This understanding reshapes how you interact with people. You begin to approach relationships without clinging or needing to control. You let people be who they are without trying to change them to fit your expectations. When someone disappoints you or acts in a way you didn't anticipate, you no longer react with frustration or resentment. You accept them as they are, knowing that their actions are a reflection of their own journey, not a measure of your value. Imagine the weight that lifts when you stop tying your sense of self to the behavior or opinions of others. Many people spend their lives trying to live up to what others expect of them, molding themselves to fit into roles they were never meant to play. They fear rejection or judgment, so they conform, often at the cost of their own authenticity. Detachment frees you from this burden. You stop performing for others and start living for yourself, embracing who you truly are without apology. As you detach, you begin to see relationships in a new light. They become opportunities to share and grow, not places where you lose yourself. You no longer see people as possessions or sources of validation, but as fellow travelers on this journey of life. You stop holding on so tightly, and in doing so, you create space for love and connection to flow naturally, without force or fear. This shift can be transformative. Many people equate love with attachment, believing that to love deeply means to hold on tightly, to intertwine their identity with someone else's. But true love doesn't come from clinging, it comes from freedom. When you detach, you love not because you need someone to complete you, but because you choose to share your wholeness with them. This kind of love is not a transaction, it is a gift. In detachment, you also find a new sense of strength. You no longer feel shaken when someone leaves or when relationships change. You understand that nothing in life is permanent, and that every person who enters your life does so for a reason. Some stay for a moment, others for a season, and a few for a lifetime. When you detach, you stop resisting this natural flow. You let go of those who need to leave and cherish the moments you have with those who stay, knowing that every connection has its purpose. This strength also allows you to set boundaries. Detachment doesn't mean allowing others to treat you poorly or staying in situations that no longer serve you. It means valuing yourself enough to walk away when necessary, without guilt or anger. You stop holding on to toxic relationships out of fear or obligation, and start choosing connections that align with your growth and values. Detachment brings clarity. When you are no longer entangled in the expectations and emotions of others, you can see situations for what they truly are. You stop getting caught up in unnecessary drama or trying to fix problems that aren't yours to solve. You recognize that everyone is responsible for their own path, and you respect that. This clarity allows you to focus on your own growth and purpose, without being weighed down by distractions that don't serve you. You might notice that as you detach, some people in your life begin to fall away. This can feel unsettling at first, but it is a natural part of the process. Not everyone will understand or appreciate your detachment. Some may feel threatened by your independence or mistake your peace for indifference. But those who truly value you will respect your journey and support your growth. Detachment is not about isolating yourself or avoiding connection. It is about approaching relationships from a place of strength and self-awareness. When you detach, you stop seeking external approval and start valuing your own opinion. You no longer feel the need to explain or justify your choices to others. This doesn't mean you stop caring about their perspectives, but their opinions no longer dictate your actions or emotions. Imagine the freedom that comes from no longer being controlled by the fear of what others might think. You begin to make decisions based on what feels right for you, not on what will please or impress others. This shift allows you to live authentically, to pursue your passions and dreams without hesitation. You stop living for others and start living for yourself, creating a life that is true to who you are. This freedom extends to how you experience emotions. Detachment doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or becoming numb. It means allowing yourself to feel fully without being consumed. You learn to observe your emotions without judgment, understanding that they are temporary states, not permanent truths. When sadness or anger arises, you acknowledge it, experience it, and let it pass, rather than clinging to it or letting it define you. As you cultivate this emotional resilience, you stop reacting impulsively to situations that once triggered you. You begin to respond from a place of calm and clarity, choosing your actions consciously rather than being driven by fleeting emotions. This not only strengthens your relationships, but also brings a sense of peace to your own inner world. Detachment also allows you to embrace the present moment. Without the constant pull of expectations or fears, you become more attuned to the here and now. You stop dwelling on the past or worrying about the future and start appreciating the beauty of what is. This presence brings a sense of gratitude and contentment that is not tied to any specific outcome. In detachment, you discover that life is not something to be controlled or conquered, but something to be experienced. You stop trying to force things to happen and start trusting the natural flow of life. This trust doesn't mean passivity, it means recognizing that there is a rhythm to life that unfolds in its own time. You do what you can, but you release the need to control the outcome. This shift allows you to approach challenges with a sense of curiosity rather than resistance. You stop seeing obstacles as threats and start seeing them as opportunities for growth. When things don't go as planned, you adapt and move forward, knowing that every experience has something to teach you. Detachment also helps you see the interconnectedness of all things. You begin to understand that your happiness is not separate from the happiness of others, that your actions ripple out into the world in ways you may never fully see. This awareness fosters a sense of compassion and humility, allowing you to connect with others from a place of authenticity and understanding. When you detach, you let go of the illusion of control. You stop clinging to what must inevitably change and start embracing the beauty of impermanence. This doesn't mean you stop caring about what happens, it means you stop resisting what is. You accept life in all its unpredictability, trusting that everything unfolds as it should. This acceptance brings a profound sense of peace. You no longer feel the need to fight against reality or to hold on to things that no longer serve you. You move through life with a sense of ease and grace, knowing that your worth is not tied to anyone or anything outside of yourself. Detachment is not about giving up on life or relationships. It is about engaging with them from a place of wholeness rather than lack. It is about finding freedom in connection, peace in uncertainty, and strength in letting go. It is about discovering that the greatest source of happiness is not something you find outside of yourself, but something you cultivate within. When you detach from others, you begin to step into a realm of profound inner clarity and authenticity. This detachment doesn't signify isolation or apathy, rather. It unveils an understanding that relationships are not the foundation of your identity or the source of your completeness. As you release the need for external validation, you start to see the beauty of your own individuality and the truth of who you are without the constant noise of others' opinions and expectations clouding your perspective. Detachment brings with it a sense of profound calm, not because you disconnect from the world, but because you disconnect from the dependency that often binds us to patterns of frustration, fear, and disappointment. Many people live their lives tethered to the thoughts, judgments, and emotions of those around them. They become like puppets, moved by the strings of approval and disapproval, always looking outward for affirmation of their worth. When you detach, these strings begin to loosen, and you feel yourself breathing freely for the first time in a long while. This clarity helps you discern between who you truly are and the roles you've been playing to fit into the expectations of others. Detachment creates a space where you can observe yourself without judgment. You might realize how often you've altered your opinions to avoid conflict, masked your feelings to gain acceptance, or compromised your values to maintain relationships. This realization can feel unsettling at first, but it is also liberating. You see how much of your energy has been spent performing for the world, and you begin to reclaim that energy for yourself. In detachment, you also recognize that others are not responsible for your emotions. There's a tendency to place blame on those who hurt or disappoint us, as though they have power over our inner peace. But when you detach, you understand that your emotional responses are yours to own and navigate. This doesn't mean you deny your feelings or suppress them. Instead, you allow yourself to feel without being consumed. You stop giving others the ability to dictate your inner state, and this alone is an extraordinary act of self-empowerment. As you release the expectation that others must act a certain way for you to feel at peace, you also stop trying to control or fix them. You no longer feel the urge to mold someone into who you think they should be. You no longer see relationships as a series of compromises where your happiness depends on someone meeting you halfway. Detachment teaches you that love, connection, and care are not about possession or control. They are about allowing others to be fully themselves, even if that means they choose a path that doesn't align with yours. This understanding transforms how you experience conflict. Many disagreements stem from an underlying desire to be right, to prove a point, or to change someone's mind. Detachment removes that need. You stop seeing conflict as a battlefield where one must win and the other must lose. Instead, you approach it with a sense of curiosity and openness, knowing that you are not defined by the opinions of others. When someone disagrees with you, you don't feel the need to defend or justify yourself. You understand that their perspective belongs to them, just as yours belongs to you. This creates room for genuine dialogue rather than futile arguments. Detachment also illuminates the impermanence of all things. You begin to see that relationships, like everything in life, are subject to change. People grow, circumstances shift, and connections evolve. When you detach, you stop clinging to the idea that relationships must remain static to be meaningful. You learn to appreciate each moment of connection for what it is, without the fear of losing it or the pressure to make it last forever. This doesn't mean you care any less. It means you care without attachment. You love with an open hand rather than a clenched fist, and in doing so you allow love to flow freely rather than suffocating it with control.